It's hard to believe that after 20 years, Godsmack has only put out 7 albums. To me, this is a very good thing because in those 7 albums, there's not a whole lot of diversity, not a whole lot of growth, and it doesn't feel like they really have a whole lot to say. And that's not necessarily from a lack of trying. It's just that even when the band does try to grow and add new elements to their songs, the songs still come across very samey. They still have that Godsmack formula to them. And I saw a quote from the singer regarding the writing process of this album, where he said that he wanted to take everything he's learned from all the different styles of music that he's written over the course of his career and put all of that into writing songs for this album. Personally, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's always good to take different styles, take different elements, and put them all into your music so that you are coming up with something different and trying to grow and expand on what you're doing. The problem I have with this is he followed that up by saying he wants the songs on this album to be more mature with that Godsmack edge. Now, what the fuck does that mean? Every time I've heard the term mature, evolving, growth, change to describe a hard rock or heavy metal band and the music they put out, that's always used to describe an album that is significantly softer, made for radio, and more simplistic. That's not actual growth or evolution as a band, it's actually regression and sometimes laziness. Now, I'm not saying the band doing a softer style is necessarily a good or a bad thing. That's really up to the listener. I'm just saying that's what the style of this album is. What is a bad thing is using the term growth or maturity or evolution, as I just said. Those terms are used to describe albums that are made to be more radio friendly. And if you're going to make an album more radio friendly, that means songs have to be much simpler. You have to have them within the 3 to 4 minute range. They have to be a very simple formula: verse, catchy chorus, verse, catchy chorus, 10-second bridge, and then another chorus. That's it. And if you're going to do a style like that, which they did on this album, that means there's no room for actual musical growth. There's no room to show good musicianship. There's no room to add variety to the songs. There's no room to give anything interesting musically to listen to because you have to be so focused on constantly having a verse, a chorus, a bridge. So the singer's constantly singing throughout the song, and there's no room to actually have something musical happen. And that style is exactly what the band does on this album. The musicianship on this album is extremely dull. There is nothing interesting except maybe in the last track. Everything else is just boring, and there's no room for these musicians to show what talent they have because everything's so simplistic. They don't even do guitar solos anymore except in the last track. So there's really nothing to break up the monotony of the verse chorus style. Even the songs I like on this album really could have benefited from a guitar solo or an extended bridge or something to break up the monotony. The singer's voice also gets really annoying on this album. He sings melodically throughout most of this album, which isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as he can do that well. Unfortunately, Sully's melodic singing style is very whiny, and it really gets on my nerves. I remember on the 4th album at times it got on my nerves too, but at least that was still a decent album. He does do some aggressive vocals here and there, but I'd really like to see him do something different vocally. I mean, he's got his whiny singing voice, and then he's got his aggressive man voice, I guess we'll call it. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty much just as dull as a metalcore singer who screams or melodically sings. Except instead of screaming, he's got his aggressive voice. So in 7 albums, he's barely grown as a vocalist. And as I stated before, the musicianship is very dull. So what else is there? Well, we get an album that's incredibly simplistic, even by Godsmack standards. It's essentially Godsmack Light, or weak sauce Godsmack, if you will. This album definitely sounds like them, but it's missing something. It's a pop album done by Godsmack. And I know people will argue, bands have the right to grow and change and all this crap. I already made my counter argument for that earlier in the video. But if anybody wants proof that this is a pop album, just take a look at the song structures. As I said before, verse, chorus, might get like a 10-second bridge, and then chorus and end. Want more further proof? Look at the song lengths. We've got a grand total of 4 songs that exceed the 3.5-minute mark. 4 fucking songs. And one of them is only 3:36. The longest song on the album is at 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Not too bad, especially for Godsmack, but none of the other songs even come close. There's one at 3 minutes and 41 seconds, so 2 of those 4 songs are barely over the 3.5-minute mark. And then you've got one other song that's at 3 minutes and 51 seconds. So only one song that goes past the 4-minute mark. It's pathetic and incredibly simplistic. And people can argue all they want. Oh, no, this is not a pop album. This is not a pop album. Yes, it fucking is. Just look at the song structures. Look at the length. Look at how there's nothing musical going on this album. It's fucking pathetic, actually. That being said, I don't hate this album. There are some songs that are enjoyable to listen to, but this album really could have been done a whole lot better than it was, and I would say this is a fail on the band's part. The album opens with the title track, When Legends Rise, which does kind of have something slightly different for the band. It's an up-tempo song, kind of soft. It's got some percussion going on in there, mixed with some drums, and then there's a guitar lick going, but it's not heavy at all. It's catchy, it's kind of fun, but there's nothing timeless about this song. Bulletproof is next, and I remember really liking the verses when this album first came out. But listening back to this song again in order to do the review, they didn't have the same quality that I remember. I remember when I first heard this song, I was thinking, oh, the verses have this sound to it like you would hear this song being played in a movie during a time when you can see people doing like a slow walk where they're about to fuck some shit up. You can tell somebody's ass is about to get kicked. That's the impression I got when I first heard this song, but listening to it again, I just didn't notice that quality this time. The chorus was a little better than the first time when I listened to the album, but it still wasn't all that great. His voice is kind of whiny here, although he is trying to sing higher, which I guess I can give him credit for. He's trying something different there. But then the bulletproof section comes in where he just repeats, I'm bulletproof, and I don't know, it's just fucking stupid to me. Unforgettable is next, and if you want another argument for this being a pop album, this song is it. This is the poppiest song the band has ever done. Incredibly simplistic structures, like in all these songs, but you've also got woes mixed in there, which gives it a very pop sound to it. Shinedown has done this. A few other bands have done this, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And you've also got children singing in the song, towards the end, or the middle of the end, I forget which. Awful song. This is hands down their worst song they have ever done. Just fucking terrible. I can't stand woes in songs or children singing. Just, it's fucking awful. Every Part of Me is next. I actually like this song quite a bit. The music stands out a little bit more than most of the other songs on this album. It's not anything special or great, but the fact that it stands out even a little bit with a couple of the guitar riffs definitely says something considering the album that it's on. It's a fairly melodic track, although it's not a ballad. There's an electric guitar riff going throughout the verses, and the chorus is heavier. But it's got a good feel to it. The vocals are halfway decent here. He's not too whiny, and I really like the melodies. And unfortunately, that's about all I can say. The guitar riff during the verse is halfway decent, I guess. I do actually really like this song. Take It to the Edge is another song that I kind of enjoy. It's a little bit more old school Godsmack. It's a little bit more aggressive. Definitely has that old school Godsmack sound to it. Pretty solid track. Under Your Scars is next, and I will say this for the band, they do try to do something a little different here. They do a piano-based ballad. It's something a bunch of other bands have done, but for them, hey, they're trying something different. I don't particularly care for this song, not my style of music, but I will give them credit for trying something else. Someday is kind of a boring song. It's the longest song on the album for some reason, but for me, it just doesn't really do anything. The first verse consists of electric guitar and vocals. The guitars are pretty melodic. They're not clean guitars. They do have some heaviness to them, but they're for the most part melodic. Sully's voice is pretty annoying during this song, though. It has that whiny tone to it that I don't like. Once they hit the chorus, that's when the rest of the band kicks in. The second verse, the whole band is playing, and then you get the same chorus. The midsection of the song, they do at least try to do something extended to break up the monotony, so I do appreciate that. It's this kind of quiet section that has vocals, so we're still not getting an instrumental break, some quiet drums, and some quiet guitars playing. It's okay, at least it's doing something a little bit different to break up the monotony of the verse chorus formula, but it's nothing really special, and this song doesn't really do anything for me. Just One Time is another melodic track, sort of. It's kind of a mix of melodic verses with heavier, pretty much everything else. It's not too bad, I guess, but not one I listen to. They do about a 5-second guitar solo in there, so that's something, but not enough to save the song. Say My Name is next, and this is another one of the songs that I listened to on the album. Again, it's more typical old school Godsmack. It's got some heaviness to it. It's pretty upbeat, pretty fast paced. It's got a nice chorus, and overall, just a solid track. Let It Out is another song that's just kind of there. I Have the Storm is my favorite song on the album. It's got the most attitude of any of these tracks. I like the opening guitar riff. There's a guitar solo. The melodies are good. Overall, it's just a good fucking song, and hands down my favorite song on the album. So at the end of the day, we get an album that isn't necessarily terrible. There's not really any song except for Unforgettable that I could say is really awful. But since the songs aren't giving any sort of room to grow, they just come across as forgettable, which is the antithesis of that awful song's title. It's a pop album, plain and simple, done in the Godsmack style, sort of. I'm going to give this album a 6 out of 10. It's okay as long as you go into it just wanting something incredibly simplistic, but if you want something more diverse or more complex, then you're going to want to look elsewhere.